What does Aaron Jones coming back to Green Bay mean for your fantasy teams? How high should Travis Kelce go in the never too early FFPC best ball tournaments? And what should be doing about Calvin Ridley as far as your Jacksonville receivers go if you are drafting in February? Plus, we have a great show tonight. It's going to be Rick Parkin, the $10,000 winner in the 2022 FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 2, coming on to talk about what you should be doing in your drafts, how he got to the mountaintop last season, and much more. We've got a great show for you. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Under pressure, I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome in to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, everybody. I apologize for the late start once again tonight. I'm having massive internet problems, and I feel like I'm probably going to have to find a new spot to do my show since I cannot rely on my home internet anymore after 2 nights in a row of this. But welcome in. I'm glad you stuck it out with us. I'm glad you're here because we do have a great show for everybody. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. Thanks to Rob. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Farrelliacs. My co-host is indeed the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. I'm going to bring him on shortly, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not checked out the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament or the Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, make sure you're doing that right now at myffpc.com. You can win up to $25,000 at just a $125 entry fee in the normal tournament. In the Superflex tournament, $35 entry will win you $5,000 for the grand prize in that as well. Both tournaments running up until the NFL draft, and they will conclude on April 27th. No kickers, no defenses as they follow best ball slim rules, 20-round draft, 14-week regular season, single-week playoff from 15 to 17. The champion is crowned after week 17. Drafts are available with a 30-second clock, a 60-second clock, a 2-hour clock, and a 6-hour clock right now at myffpc.com. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and get notified on this video so we can make sure that you are being kept abreast of every single video and every single content, all the pieces of content we put out at the FFPC YouTube channel as well. Want to bring in my co-host tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football himself, Farrell Elliott. Farrell, welcome in. And how was the big Super Bowl soiree outside of Louisville, Kentucky, my friend?
We had a blast, Balky. Thank you for asking. You know, everything about it was smooth except the fact that you couldn't be here in person, but you and Ron Meyer, our men from Wisconsin, saved the day. We had a late dropout. 2-packer dropped in, drafted like a champ, as did you. Food was served. The game, which had a preponderance of Philadelphia Eagle fans in the room. Last year, a preponderance, naturally, of Cincinnati Bengal fans in the room. So the mood perhaps at the end of the game was not as strong as through the first 2 days of the drafting event, but all in all, a good time was had, certainly by me and definitely by everyone that enjoyed drafting.
Well, I'm glad, and I had a blast on Sunday morning doing my draft as well. It was a lot of fun. Looking forward to many more drafts with the KFFSC this year. Remember to check out all those drafts at kffsc.com. You have another one going on this Sunday, right? If I remember correctly.
Do we ever? And if you talk about guys from Wisconsin, this is the Bart Starr division of the Super Sunday Sweet 16, and there's 9 spots left. Still eligible at $200 a piece. Go to kffsc.com. Jump in. Jesse Bumstead will be the facilitator, and we're looking forward to a full house of 12 drafters to close out our 96 Sweet 16 drafters in Super Sunday.
That's going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be a lot of fun. Now, we have, I don't think this is necessarily breaking news, but I want to bring it up tonight because I think it just happened this afternoon, if I'm remembering correctly. The report from Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports took place right around about 3.5 hours ago. But the Washington Commanders have indeed hired Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator. He will also get the title of assistant head coach. This is more than a lateral move because he will be calling plays in Washington, something he did not have the ability to do in Kansas City behind Andy Reid. The roster that he is going to get there has some pretty good pieces. I don't know how set they are at quarterback here, but your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy in Washington now, Farrell, when you think about drafting guys like Brian Robinson, like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, another guy there as well. How does Bieniemy change things here for the Commanders?
Enhances all positions. Please add Curtis Samuel to that list. It enhances all positions, and it's a good decision for him. We hear the commentary. Why is this guy not a head coach yet? This may be the natural path for him to take this team on morebound offensive franchise, add a quarterback, develop that player. Doesn't have to be a rookie. It can be someone that comes from free agency. And as a matter of fact, it makes the team look much, much better on the offensive side of the ball when you're a general manager and you're going out and saying, this is your offensive coordinator. This job's worth $2.5 million, pushing up towards $3 million a year. It's a pretty good daytime job for a 53-year-old coach with well respected in the leagues and among the players.
I want to bring up, before we get to the Aaron Jones news, from Go Long, Tyler Dunn and Bob McGinn had a podcast that they put out this afternoon. Some interesting stuff here. Bob McGinn believes the Packers are, quote, done with Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love is going to be the starter in 2023. Bob McGinn says the team is, quote, disgusted with Rodgers, says he has a source with firsthand knowledge of the situation as well. He also said that the Packers feel that the Aaron Rodgers did not put in enough effort leading into this past season. And McGinn also says the Packers are very infatuated with Love, saying, quote, they think he's the second coming now. Unbelievable stuff there, or maybe totally believable. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, I believe, is in his darkness retreat. I don't know. We'll wait for further word for him on that, since he's the only one who knows what's going on with himself in the darkness retreat. But, Errol, this is interesting. What do you do with Packers right now? Are you bumping them up your boards, guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and the like? And then I guess it's tough to know what to do with Rodgers because you don't know what he's going to be quarterbacking, if he's going to be a Raider, if he's going to be a Jet. What are you doing with Rodgers and the current Packers in your drafts right now?
I think there is your value in the quarterback Rodgers, and based on where he's going, and Balky, I'm sure you'll tell me from our mojo. But I really I believe in Love. However, you've got to see how he runs the football club and brings it together. As you were saying that, my old and favorite gym manager, the late, great Jim Finks, always told me when I asked him about certain players, he would say, I just go in the locker room and I can't stand looking at him anymore. And maybe that's what's going on here. You just, in every relationship in professional sports, there does become a time to move on. We're seeing that with the Raiders. I think we'll see that with the Packers. We see it with less celebrated players, but some players have to find a home and work hard to find it. Others find one, but the home goes away before their ability to compete does. So, everything will work out in the end.
I think so too. I feel pretty good about the Packers going forward. Hudson Reeve wants to know about Aaron Jones prospects without Rodgers in 2023. I gobbled them up, and I think the fifth round is either the fourth or the fifth round in that Kentucky draft I did on Sunday, and I was pretty happy about that. I think he's in for another big season. We're going to get to more Aaron Jones coming up later on in the show, but I do want to bring in our guest right now, ladies and gentlemen. He has been a firefighter and paramedic in the western suburbs of Chicago for the last decade and a half plus. He's been playing high-stakes fantasy football for nearly a decade, definitely into the best ball area of high-stakes fantasy football, and he won the 2022 FFPC Superflex best ball tournament #2 last year and came this close to winning the #1 tournament as well. Please welcome in our $10,000 champion from that tournament last year, the incomparable Rick Parkin. Rick, welcome into the show tonight, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, Rick.
So firefighter, paramedic, this is good stuff because I believe, I could be wrong, but there is a show on NBC right now called Chicago Fire. have they asked you for any insight in how to make the show more realistic?
No, they have not. I've actually, people always ask, like, have you seen this show or have you seen this movie? And honestly, most of the times I haven't. I actually went to film school. And so I feel like my threshold for quality of entertainment is a little bit higher than some of those. Because I mean, like, a lot of those are kind of melodramatic, and they're not very accurate when it comes to like what you do in firefighting.
But Rick, that's why the girls watch it with you. You've got, if you're gonna have a date running shotgun, you got to keep her there.
Yeah. I'm married, so I've already locked in.
Yeah, you definitely have to entertain and keep her there. Then.
Yeah.
So Rick, if you went to film school for a while, can you give us any early Oscar picks that for anybody who is looking to play some Oscar bets this year? Did you see any of the Best Picture nominees?
I did. I just saw was it Everything Everywhere All at Once? I really liked that. Yeah, that was probably my favorite thing that I saw this year. I did think it was kind of a down year. I actually think that's kind of a trend. Just personal opinion on it, but yeah, I really like that one. I'd like to see that one.
I have one of the guys I follow here I'm in Wisconsin, and one of the guys that has seen a lot of the films this year. Everything Everywhere All at Once, he said he likes. And then this other one with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. I'm going to butcher the name. The Banshees of Inisherin. I don't know what it's called. But he said he loved that one. He thinks that's a contender as well. All right.
That was really good.
Go ahead. That was
really good. All the actors were great in it. And also those guys were in another movie called In Bruges. And that's a really awesome movie. Check that out.
Yes, and that one came out like what, 10, 12, 15 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, I think it came out like 07, 08, somewhere around there.
And they're hitmen in Belgium. Is that what it was?
Yeah, they're like hiding out in Belgium, like kind of waiting what they're gonna do next. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. If there's anything I've learned about the Oscars, they love movies about movies, and The Fabelmans would be my pick there with Spielberg's semi-autobiographical. I think that's the one that's going to win. In any event, we'll get back to fantasy football here. So Rick, the first sort of question for you that we want to talk to you about the $10,000 FFPC Superflex tournament. Congrats on winning it. But when I was doing some research on this, you weren't that far off from winning the Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 1, too. Or number 1 and number 2. So it had to be a pretty exciting time for you watching those games on both Sunday and then Monday.
Yeah, it was really cool. Kind of like I checked the scores on Sunday, saw where I was at. I knew the Monday game. Obviously, a lot of people in best ball kind of tried to stack that game, or they really put a lot of emphasis on that game. So I was prepared for a really good sweat. Unfortunately, that was the game that was ended really shortly after it started.
Yes.
So that didn't really take place. Yeah, it was a really exciting time, and I was really lucky and fortunate to kind of be in that position.
Rick, especially in these never too earlys, when we draft these teams, you sit with them a long while, and you become very, very proud of yourself sometimes if you got your guy, especially when your guy keeps getting little tidbits and nudges of information that improve his status and gives you positive things to look at. Did you have anybody like that? And in the Superflex, were two of them quarterbacks? Or, who are your guys that you really did count on this past season?
So I was kind of looking at this team, trying to figure out who it was. There wasn't any particular player. Like, I got Devonta Smith that I was happy with. And I was also really into Jalen Hurts this year as well. But I was more happy with the fact that I had a plan going into the draft and I was able to execute it. Like, I got an elite tight end, I got an anchor running back, I didn't dip into the RB dead zone. So I think that was probably what I was most satisfied with, is that I didn't I had a plan and I was able to kind of implement it despite the other drafters kind of doing what they were going to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I want to bring up, before I ask you this next question, this will be good info for everybody who is watching this right now. Shout out to Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter, fantasymojo.com. Any of the ADP data or draft data we cite on the show is always from him. He is the godfather of the Pros versus Joes tournament as well. As we look at running backs this coming year for the Chiefs, where they are going right now, running back 26 for Isaiah Pacheco at the 707. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back 63 at the 1705. He's basically free right now. And Jerick McKinnon, running back 44 at the 1210. You had Jerick McKinnon on this team for you, Rick. If you were drafting right now, how would you handle him? Is he a guy that you'd invest in the 12th, 13th round? And what about the rest of the Chiefs running backs? And sort of how do you foresee that situation evolving for the 2023 season?
Yeah, so I had a lot of Jerick McKinnon. I've been a huge Jerick McKinnon fan since he came into the league. He's actually one of the most athletic running backs to ever come into the league. He's like 90 plus percentile athlete in every category. It's kind of a tough backfield because if there's still going to be three guys, Pacheco and CEH and McKinnon, they're all going to, kind of cancel each other out. Like Pacheco didn't catch a lot of passes. So if he's just kind of an early down grinder, I don't like that in PPR leagues. And McKinnon, it was a great time to get him last year because he was cheap. I think I got him in the 17th. But if he's going earlier, it's going to be hard to kind of recapture that magic. I mean, he got 10 touchdown last year. And CEH, I've honestly never been too much of a fan. So but in these situations, I think your best thing to do is take the cheapest guy. And he's still going to be in a Andy Reid offense. He's still going to have Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes isn't like Allen or Hurts, where he's going to steal a lot of red zone touches. So I honestly, if CEH the cheapest guy, I would go with CEH.
Even Rick, you got great value at 17 for McKinnon. I think that's where you said you got him, but now he's only 12. Wouldn't you spend 12? When would you quit drafting McKinnon? Wouldn't you draft him?
Maybe that's the move. I know he's a free agent, so I know I believe he's a free agent. I don't think he's been signed yet. So that's another thing too, is I think it's his best bet to stay in KC, but if he doesn't,
he'll go to Washington with the offensive coordinator and really complicate everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Let's talk about George Pickens here, Rick.
Ooh,
yeah. And
I look, Pickens. That's really my guy, Pickens. The athleticism. When you were talking about McKinnon's athleticism, I began to think about Pickens, and I wonder. And Balky is teased us a little bit. I think this is a 7th round draft pick. Is that about where he's going to solidify it, or is that? Do you agree with me that may be a bit of a bargain early on?
I think he'll move up. Like he'll start to be drafting earlier. I think a lot of people seem to be into him last year. And I get it. He makes like big, exciting plays. But he's also going to be a second-year wide receiver. Like there's a ton of good data on banking on second-year wide receivers is a great thing to do. Also rookies. But so, yeah, I would expect him to probably climb upwards in drafts. Okay. So you might be getting good value. And honestly, I looked at the guys around him, and I prefer him to them just in the sense that he is young and he's athletic, second-year player. I'd probably rather take him and see what he gets you.
Pickens going right below Brandon Ayuk and Tyler Lockett going right above Deontay Johnson and Marquise Brown right now in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament. This is a guy that I feel like I've talked about with a lot of high-stakes players and pundits in the industry right now, Rick, and it's DeAndre Swift. A guy I think I had on a couple of dynasty teams last year, didn't grab him in any redraft leagues and don't really necessarily regret it. I mean, obviously Jamal Williams ended up leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Can you get on board with him in 2023, Rick? He is going at the end of the 3rd round as the 13th running back off the board. Does that seem right to you? He's going, and I'll tell you this right now too. Swift is going right behind Travis Etienne and Ramondre Stevenson. He's going right ahead of Najee Harris and Joe Mixon. Your thoughts on Swift this year, Mr. Parkin?
I do like DeAndre Swift a lot. this past year, I drafted probably him and Saquon Barkley were like the guys that I was like hammering at the end of the first round, or if they made it back in the second. I think he's one of the like actually elite talents at the running back position. Somebody that's worth getting. Somebody that that seems to be an offense that's kind of on the upswing. I know Jamal Williams is a free agent. I understand the hesitancy. He has had a hard time staying on the field, but I think last year he got hurt, and they knew it was something they were going to have to manage, and so they really manage his touches. But yeah, I'm a sucker for Swift. So if you can get him at a discount like late in the third, I'm gonna end up taking it a lot. So,
I think a discount in the coaching world was something that perhaps the Baltimore Ravens have settled with. And I look at these coaches and as they move from college to pro and back to college and back to pro, I'm looking for a guy. I'm looking for more of a guy like what we have headed over to Washington now. So, but Todd Monken comes in from University of Georgia, and the caveat is that he was last in charge of an NFL offense in 2019, the Cleveland Browns. What's this make you feel about your Ravens? It doesn't particularly enthuse me. Your thoughts on what this coach might do with Jackson and the Ravens receiving targets?
So I am a big Rashad Bateman fan. I kind of almost have to be at this point. I have a lot of Rashad Bateman in Dynasty. And I did draft him a lot last year, and obviously you didn't get a lot out of it. But I like him a lot. I obviously Mark Andrews is a really talented tight end. He's one of the elite guys. So I would like to see them kind of change up a little bit and pass more. I think they do need help. I don't think having Devin Duvernay as your wide receiver too is good enough. I think they need more help at skill position players. But I would like to see them pass more and be a little bit more like aggressive downfield. Yeah.
Well, apparently that's the MO here, and hopefully you'll get it.
Let's so breaking news again, Travis Kelce, he's going to be hosting Saturday Night Live on March 4th, which will be must-see TV for sure. But he's a guy that so weird that we're seeing a guy 33, I think he'll be 34 next season. He's being drafted super high in the FFPC Never Too Early tournament, 103 right now. Second, basically, it's him or Jamar Chase and sometimes Christian McCaffrey all trading to being the second player off the board here. But Travis Kelce next year in the FFPC, Rick, I mean, should people be looking at him at the 101 or is that too high?
That would be too high for me. I think where he went this past year is, I think it was like 106, 107, somewhere in there. It's tough because you're right. The guy's old, but for a football player, but he's unbelievable. And I also feel like the elite tight end group got even thinner based on what we saw this last year. Darren Waller really struggled. Kittle's got such competition, and he has these monster weeks, but then there's a lot of times where he's not getting the volume. So I feel like Andrews and Kelce are kind of like the elite guys that are still there. And especially in FFPC with, tight end premium, I think you have to pick him. But I also completely understand people being scared about like that age cliff because when it comes, it's brutal. As far as the drop off that guys have. So
let's get to a couple of emails here. In fact, we might even have three of them tonight for you, Rick. The first one is from Greg in Albany, New York. And what is he right here? What Browns are you targeting if Deshaun Watson has a bounce back 2023? Thank you so much for the email, Greg in Albany. What do you think about the Browns this coming year? If Watson does indeed have the season I think a lot of people expected him to have last season, if he bounces back, who are some of the beneficiaries of that, man?
I'm going to guess Njoku. And I really hope that David Bell can actually show up this year. I like David Bell a lot. I had a lot of them, and He just never was able to kind of carve out a spot. I know Donovan Peoples-Jones had a pretty good year. So, yeah, right now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not super excited about Cleveland. I just, they're a team that seems to want to run the ball. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Right now, there's nobody on Cleveland that's like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to get them. But that could change. I mean, like 3 months from now, it could absolutely change.
As a public service, Rick, Balky and I tried to talk everyone off of David Bell last year. I think I started that, and then Balky joined me. And
well, you guys were definitely sharper than me.
It was hard. Yeah, we're a lot sharper than you.
The next one's from Johnny in Lubbock, Texas, here for you, Rick. He says, should I draft based on Justin Fields being the starting quarterback in Chicago next year?
Yeah, I am in Chicago, and yes, I would absolutely draft as if Justin Fields is going to be the starter.
What do you think they do with that pick then? They just draft a defender and then, or I mean, do they trade down and get some more ammo so they can get some weapons for Justin Fields?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to have, like, whether it's the Colts or the Panthers or somebody, I think they're going to try to draft or move down, maybe take a defender like Jalen Carter or somebody. But they need a lot of help at the skill positions. Like, they're very bad.
Final email we have for you, I think here. Yeah, final one. Justin in Los Angeles wants to know, what do you think about the prospects for Noah Fant in 2023? Well, what do you think about him, Rick? I know if I remember correctly, when I was looking at your roster, I feel like you had a decent amount of shares of Noah Fant last year. And then Geno Smith ended up being comeback player of the year, looked really good for Seattle. What does he do for Fant? What do you do with Fant this year? And I'll tell you right now, in the Never Too Early tournament, Noah Fant is currently going off the board as the tight end 24 at the 1407, right behind Trey McBride and Taysom Hill, right ahead of Juwan Johnson and Daniel Bellinger. Your thoughts on Fant, Rick?
I think that's a totally reasonable spot to take him. I like Noah Fant a lot. I think there was 3 guys. He was one of 3 that were playing a lot.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys. I mean, the position takes a really long time for guys to learn in the NFL, and often they break out late. And he is the kind of guy you want to try to bank on for a breakout, because he's extremely athletic. And they could use playmakers in that offense.
He's an athletic player amongst 2 other tight ends who aren't particularly athletic, and you wonder why they want to have 3 tight ends on the field so much of the time. It seems to be a player that's going to have a hard time reaching his potential at that location.
Yeah.
So, Rick, I got to ask you here, not only did you win $10,000 winning the Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 2 last year, but I know you brought home, 9th place in the Superflex Best Ball Tournament 1. You won some other dynasty leagues last year, some other satellite leagues. So I know you brought home a decent amount of change in the FFPC. Have you already spent that money? Is the money earmarked for something? What are your plans for that cash that you won?
Cool.
So I did spend some of it. I'm a record collector, vinyl records. So I already bought some records on Discogs, added to my hefty collection. I did also book a trip for me and my wife to San Diego. Both of us never been. And I have some left that I'd like to maybe spend to go. I have a decent amount of tattoos. And I'm at a point where I usually travel to the artist, the state they're in. So I like to do that. But that's going to be tough to negotiate. I have a 5-month-old, so I'd be signing my wife up for like a lot of extra work.
Rick, if you come play in Kentucky, I'll have a tattoo artist in the draft room for you. So we'll make that work. We'll make that work for you. And what is the name or number of your firehouse there in Chicago?
So I'm in the western suburbs of Chicago in Elgin, and we're at Station 3.
Station 3, and does Station 3 the membership and group, and does everyone know that you won $10,000?
No, a couple of the guys.
I'll let them all know that you will be.
They do now. Yeah.
It's Mardi Gras and March Madness. Yeah. It'll be great.
Yeah, the two guys I work with every day, they know. They were actually working with me the day that the final Monday night game happened, and so they were ready to sweat with me. And yeah, they know, and they were super excited for me, as you can imagine.
Yeah, well, you saw that night. You saw some great work by your
colleagues
in arms there. So
mm-hmm.
you probably yeah.
Rick, can you share, and if it's wild and we've never heard of them, that's fine. Can you share any of the albums that you bought on vinyl with the winnings?
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of music that's called post metal or post rock. The album I bought is from a Swedish band called Cult of Luna. And this album, it came out in like 2008. And they actually they had one of their guys in their band hand printed screen printed the cover for it. I don't even know if they sold these. I think they made the color, because the albums come in different variants, like the actual vinyl record. And this is a clear one. There was only 100 copies made, very hard to get. I was able to get one from a guy in Spain. And so I was really excited to add that one to my collection, because I love that album. And it's also, like I said, it's handmade by one of the members of the band.
So, and what's the name of the album? I'm sorry.
The name of the album is Eternal Kingdom. The name of the
Eternal
band is
Kingdom.
Cult of Luna.
Okay.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Farrell.
We've got to get Rick and Jeff Joaquin in the same room to start talking music.
Yeah.
And when you mention some of your worldwide bands with a following like yourself and other passionate listeners, we have a guy down here in Anna who also plays in the FFPC. That he would say, yes, I know that band. Don't you like their and then you two would just spin off into the music verse out there. It would be great to watch that.
Absolutely.
To bring it full circle back to what we were talking about with movies, Cult of Luna had an album, or maybe a couple albums, that the artwork was inspired by Fritz Lang's movie Metropolis, which is a classic film. You obviously know this too, Rick. It one of the classic films that you study when you're at film school, and now Cult of Luna, drawing inspiration from that movie, which I don't think won Best Picture, but it was certainly it has stood the test of time.
It's staying power, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Quick side note. So the lead singer of Cult of Luna is a casting director, but also a director, and he just directed a movie this last year that won an award at Swedish's version of the Oscars. So I mean, he's well versed in the history of film and stuff like that. And yeah, the album Vertical is inspired by Fritz Lang's Metropolis.
God, this is great. This is so much we're really getting into it right now. So I believe
I could do this type of stuff all day, talk about movies.
Okay, so I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So he was, I believe we're talking about Johannes Persson, from Cult of Luna. He was actually in the casting department for one of, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite movies, but I definitely enjoyed it. I've seen it multiple times. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with Daniel Craig, not James Bond, with Daniel Craig, and then of course, and then Rooney Mara was in that flick as well. So pretty crazy stuff. And good stuff. Anyway, Farrell has a fantasy football question here for you.
Oh, and there's your football connection, Rooney Mara. Hey, yes, I do. Who are you fading? You can't use a guy we've already talked about. I think it's important this time of year to know who you're staying away from, because there's a lot of guys to like. But who do you really love, Rick? Who's the guy that you've got to make work in your best ball drafts this year?
So I had an easier time with the fade. The fade is Josh Jacobs to me. I haven't really had Josh Jacobs basically his entire career. And then he had a huge year last year.
He was in that dead zone that you said you worked to avoid. That's where he was last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's not this year.
Yep. yeah. And that's so I know he had a huge year, but up until this point, he is just somebody that it's not the type of player the type of profile that I kind of get behind. So for me, if he's going to be even more expensive,
where would you?
So I actually did take him in, I think, one draft last year. I want to say he fell to round 8 or 9.
Yeah. Where would you take him this year? 4?
I probably still wouldn't take. I'd probably still wait till he was outside of the zone, the dead zone, and not because he's not a good player, but it's that opportunity cost. So if I'm taking him in the 5th or 6th or even the 4th, there's a wide receiver that I'm not taking, and wide receivers score better. They're less likely to get injured. So I'm going to go with the wide receivers.
And does that same fade exist in redraft as well as best ball, or do you look at that player a little differently?
No, I'm gonna fade him as well.
Okay. And who do you love?
Then for I've kind of got this answer from the dynasty leagues that I'm in and the trade offers I'm getting. Like everybody wants, I have a decent amount of Garrett Wilson. Everybody wants Garrett Wilson. Completely understand it. But I feel like Chris Olave is not getting the same amount of love, at least as for like people that are coming after him. I thought he had a really good rookie year. He's a 2nd-year wide receiver. I want to bank on that type of player. I think Treylon Burks and Drake London are also guys that I would like to get. And I think Burks and London, understandably, people are going to have hesitation because of the way their rookie years played out. But especially London, like I can't imagine them running the ball that much. Like it was, I think, pretty historic how little they were throwing. I still thought he was good, all things considered.
And if you trust those front offices to find the right quarterback, that might enhance those.
Yeah.
Chris Olave, wide receiver 16 at the 403. Drake London, wide receiver 21 at the 504. And then Treylon Burks this year, gentlemen, wide receiver 37 at the 711. I know there's a lot of high stakes heat on Treylon Burks for sure this year. And I have reassuring news for you here tonight, Rick, about Josh Jacobs. You will not have to worry about wondering if you should take him in round 5 or round 6, because he is going in the 2nd round, 210 at the running back 9. So you won't have him this year, and that's fine by you. And certainly you know what you're doing because you won $10,000 in the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 2 last year. Congratulations to you. Good luck. I know you got a bunch of dynasty rookie drafts that'll be coming up after the NFL draft. Good luck in all those leagues and all your best ball leagues you're doing this year. I know you really enjoy it. Congratulations on all the success. Thank you for everything you do in the fire department and in the paramedic area. We appreciate that. And I know all of our viewers in the western suburbs of Chicago definitely appreciate you as well. And thanks so much for hanging out with us on a Friday night and talking a little fantasy football, man. We really appreciate it.
No problem. I really appreciate the chance to come on and talk with you guys. So thanks again.
Thank you, Rick.
We'll let you get back to your listening to some Cult of Luna now.
Crank it up, buddy.
Thanks, Rick. Rick Parkin, ladies and gentlemen, the $10,000 winner of the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 2 last year. Good luck to him going forward. A lot of good knowledge from him on how he built these teams. I think the Dizzle Dave Gerzak asked in the chat who were the quarterbacks he had on his winning roster, and they were Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, and then Joe Flacco, who obviously all 3 of them had spike weeks throughout the year, but certainly Hurts was the big money maker there. And then Daniel Jones, I guess, was the true money maker because he really crushed it down the stretch, especially week 17. So congrats to Rick Parkin. Let's get back to the Packers talk that we had earlier, Farrell. I want to get into this because today ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that Aaron Jones and the Packers have restructured the deal that he signed a couple of years ago for 2023. He was going to be earning $20 million this year, $20 million cap hit. He's now going to be earning $11 million, which includes an $8.52 million signing bonus. Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, told everybody at the end of season news conference that he thought that Jones would be back for him this year. This will be his age 29 season. 1,500 plus yards from scrimmage this past year, had a career high in rushing yards, had a career high in catches with 59. I got him in that Kentucky draft on Sunday. I'm surprised to see how far he's slipping. I look at this from the standpoint, and by the way, too, and we should point this out. I think that Drew Rosenhaus, his representation, looked at all these free agent running backs that are out there. He looked at all the great talented running backs that are coming in from the NFL draft and said, look, you can make $11 million. You're going to make the most money of any running back in the NFL not named Christian McCaffrey this year. Maybe you take this pay cut, take this deal. That way the Packers aren't releasing you, putting you out into a saturated market for running backs. And Aaron Jones, running back 18 at the 502. I love that value, Farrell. I think he's definitely going to return that and much more this year.
Yeah, for fantasy football value, I thought. Matter of fact, this weekend, a couple times when drafters called out his names, I started. Oh, he's not already taken. Okay, here's the sticker right here. And when Drew and when they did that deal, he and Jones, they knew that they probably this year would be reworking it, and a lot has to do with where your client is and where he's healthy, happy, and where he likes to be, and that's Green Bay. It's been wonderful situation for him, and that's a terrific salary. So he's in a real good place, and congratulations to those guys for getting it done.
And I'll tell you this too. I think regardless of who the quarterback is this year, Aaron Jones is going to have a very good year. As long as he stays healthy, knock on wood.
Yes.
I think he's going to be big with Jordan Love. I think he's going to be big with Aaron Rodgers. Now, another interesting guy that we haven't heard about in darn near 2 years has been Calvin Ridley. He's eligible to apply for reinstatement after his indefinite suspension from the NFL. After it was found out that he bet on NFL games during a 5-day period in November of 2021 while he was away from the Atlanta Falcons. The Jaguars got him for a 5th-round pick at the trade deadline last year with the expectation that he'll be available to them in the 2023 season. He has been in 49 regular season games, caught 248 passes for 3,342 yards and 28 touchdowns. That's basically over 4 seasons worth there. Ridley, to start 2021, which was the last time we saw him, 31 catches, 281 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which was not great. But you like to think that he rebounds with a up-and-coming offense with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, and certainly they're going to have Christian Kirk there. I don't know if either the Jones would be back, be it Marvin or Zay Jones, but Evan Engram is a guy I know they want to try to bring back as well. Farrell, as I look at Calvin Ridley's ADP right now in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, wide receiver 30 at the 607. Now, to me, that's a little high. I don't think I'd be taking him there because I am, we saw the rust on Deshaun Watson last year. I'm a little bit nervous about, Ridley also having to knock off that rust. He's going behind Terry McLaurin and Mike Evans, but he's going ahead of Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, the aforementioned George Pickens as well. I think I'm going to go elsewhere instead of taking Ridley at that price.
I'm not going to understand why you would, but it's a different situation, Bulky. It's a guy that's had football taken away from him, and he's probably had a come to Jesus realization in his life that he's got to get his act together, and this is his last chance. What bothers me more than Ridley's ability to come back and be the athlete and the player and contributor that he was is that the fit seems a little odd to me because they seem to have a group of receivers that are clicking with the quarterback. Now, I know he's an upgrade, and I know he can fit right into this group, but from fantasy purposes, how many balls are there to go around? And Christian Kirk, as he says to anyone that'll listen, I don't feel that I'm particularly getting respect. I'm getting paid like it, but I don't feel like fans, the people that play fantasy football and definitely that play it like we do, we probably give him more respect than the average fantasy player. But largely, we'll just have to see how things work out here. But, yes, based on the players that you mentioned, I would tend to go another direction at that draft spot as well.
Jonathan Jones reported this on Twitter this past week after the Colts hired Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, that at his introductory conference, Jim Irsay said they wanted to hire an offensive coach, quote, knowing we're going to have to find a young quarterback to develop. And he later said in that press conference, quote, the Alabama guy doesn't look bad, I'll tell you, end quote, from Jim Irsay there. So it's certainly is. I love him. It's he's so great. So obviously what we can glean from this is that the Colts are drafting a quarterback early. I think the Dizzle was pointing out in the chat earlier in the show that they could be trading up from 4 to 1 to draft Bryce Young potentially there. And if that's the case, then the Colts will have their man. If you look at who they could get if they stick at 4, I mean, Stroud would be in the picture. Will Levis would be in the picture. It certainly seems we know that the Colts will be having a young quarterback this year after numerous years of going into it with well-established veteran at the tail end of his career. What do you do knowing that? What do you do with a guy like Michael Pittman and perhaps Jonathan Taylor as well? Are you bumping either one of those guys down? Are you bumping Colts down in general, knowing that they might be taking their lumps with a fresh quarterback throwing to them?
Not Pittman, because as we talked about this weekend at the draft, Pittman still had his 90 catches or thereabouts for the season. The number one target for a rookie quarterback, especially on a team that does not have a prolific tight end, is a very, very attractive player. Pittman high points the ball, gets open, is physical enough. I love Pittman with any quarterback. I love him with a quarterback that's trying to learn the NFL game. So I'm going to leave Pittman right where I want him there. And I haven't targeted too many other Colts. The kid from Cincinnati, the other receiver, Alec Pierce, is it? Mm-hmm. Pierce is probably a steal now, and I would go ahead and steal him. But, I'm going to go with Pittman here and expect that they will move up and that they will take the Alabama quarterback, because I'm not falling in love with a great deal of the other quarterbacks that are available in this.
And I'm with you on that. Like, it's funny because I think from an NFL standpoint, if I was a GM, I would not be wanting to get in business with Anthony Richardson as early as he's expected to go. But for fantasy, Farrell, I want to be in business with Anthony Richardson because I think he could be a better fantasy quarterback than NFL quarterback. I just don't know how quickly he'd get onto the field. And that's something that you're going to have to decide in your rookie drafts, your Superflex drafts, how you want to handle a guy like him, because he may not get a ton of playing time in 2023, but if he does, he could be pretty valuable. Let's go to another email here as we get into the fantasy feedback segment. Patrick in Cleveland, Ohio. Hey, guys, is Dalvin Cook a fade for you this season? Thanks for all you do. That is Patrick in Cleveland. Certainly appreciate the email, Patrick. Now, the news we got on Dalvin Cook earlier this week, he underwent shoulder surgery. And this is nothing new for Dalvin Cook. He's had shoulder surgeries numerous times throughout his career. In fact, 2014, 2016, 2019, and 2021. And now those were all injuries. Those weren't surgeries, I should say. Those are all shoulder injuries. And then he hurt his shoulder in 2022 as well. He didn't miss any time, but it was one of his worst seasons as a pro. Just obviously playing through that took its toll on him. He's going to be 28 this coming year, coming off surgery. Alexander Madison is a free agent. What's interesting about Cook to me is I gave you the bad. Let me give you the good, because right now I don't think he's ever been lower in his NFL career than where he's going right now. At the end of the fourth round, early fifth round, 412, running back 17. I think we all have to, whether you like Cook or not, you have to take a long look at him at the end of the fourth round, Farrell.
And if your strategy is to hit those elite receivers and grab your elite tight end, then Cook is a nice play for you at that position. I would argue that everything Rick said about Jacobs, I would apply to Cook. However, I try to look at what a player can do instead of what he can't. And Cook, to me, will still be the targeted running back in this offense. A pretty good offense. An offense is going to have to score to win. It's designed to score. So, Cook was questionable where he was going last year. I don't think he's questionable where he's going this year. I would take that risk in building my roster out with Cook.
This is from, let's see, it was the one we just got in. Mike in Southfield, Michigan. What do you guys make of the new coordinator hire in Carolina to go along with Frank Reich? Thank you for the email. We certainly appreciate it from you, Mike. Thomas Brown is the new offensive coordinator, or expected to be a new offensive coordinator for the Panthers. Now, he is a guy that was the assistant head coach with Sean McVay last year in Los Angeles. He was a tight ends coach there, and now he comes to Carolina where they have some pieces. You talk about that backfield there. I don't think anybody expected Foreman and Hubbard to be as good as they were after McCaffrey got traded, but they were very good. Still have DJ Moore. You have Terrace Marshall, a guy who was coming up last year, and I know a lot of high-stakes players still believe in Tommy Tremble, the tight end there. Do you think these Carolina Panthers players, Farrell, that I mentioned, none of them are going particularly high this year, these players that you want to be in business in 2023?
No, is my answer to that. However, the celebrated on this show temporary play caller for the Indianapolis Colts, I believe, Parks Frazier, a Murray State University grad, has also been hired to accompany the OC over there. And that gives me reason to hope. No, with Carolina, I really can't talk about it yet because I don't know. That's the team that I have to, look at and say, I want to evaluate players in the combine. I want to see the draft. I want to see some pro day numbers. I want to see how they're going to line up. And of course, DJ Moore is always a threat for fantasy football, but I'm wait and see on all the rest, especially the tight end there, the kid, I believe from Notre Dame, that want to see how he develops in this offense. But right now, there's just too many other choices with high upside than to get into business with your Carolina Panthers ball.
Yeah, DJ Moore, and I think the Dizzle just said that Carolina's skill players suck except for DJ Moore. And right now, I think he is the most expensive one going in the never too early drafts. DJ Moore going wide receiver 22 at the 505. That's Amari Cooper, Drake London, Keenan Allen territory for DJ Moore right now. Let's go to, who is this here? This is Chuck in Wichita, Kansas. Chuck wants to know about if we believe Mike Gesicki is going to be a sleeper this year. Now, Mike Gesicki is a guy who played for the Dolphins last year, first year under Mike McDaniel, under the franchise tag too, by the way. 45% of the offensive snaps he played on, 32 catches and 362 yards. Those were all career lows going back to his rookie season. I think I know I wasn't a fan of his going into this year. You got to be able to block if you're going to play in McDaniel's offense, and he is not a blocker. He is a pass catcher. So I think that he will end up elsewhere this coming year, and I think anybody who signs him is definitely going to be on board with featuring him in the passing game. And why this is interesting is because he is not being drafted fairly high right now. Tight end 19 at the 11-11 behind Chigo Okonkwo, Tyler Higbee, and Gerald Everett. And then the next guys off the board, Michael Mayer, Hayden Hurst, and then Trey McBride in the 13th round. So Gesicki, I think I would be willing to roll the dice if I was drafting in the FFPC. I'd be willing to roll the dice on him in the late 11th because I think he'll end up in a spot where he's going to be a much more of a difference maker this year than he was last year.
Absolutely. His opportunities were gutted this past year, Balky. Only 32 targets. And one of the things I looked up about this player mid-season is that he only started one game. Now, I know he was on the field a great deal, but he was listed as being on the field at the start of the game once, which kind of tells you what they thought about him as being able to contribute other than catching the ball, which he did in the red zone. What's our guy that hosts the Red Zone, Valky? What's his name?
Well, there's a couple of guys. Siciliano is the guy.
Siciliano. If you sit there for your 7 hours of uninterrupted commercial football, you saw Gesicki scoring touchdowns and you saw him being used around the goal line, and you might tend to think this is a player that, he's doing what he's always done. He was, between the 20s, he was non-existent last year. Only 32 catches. It just was not a good year.
Our resident Ivy League professor from Cornell, ever hear of it, Hudson Kern-Reeve, weighing in right now. He wants to know, he's asking us a question, where should Kadarius Toney be going in 2023 FFPC drafts? Well, we can tell you where we think he should be going, but I'll tell you right now where he is going. Wide receiver 44 at the 906. This is after Quentin Johnston and Gabe Davis, right ahead of Jordan Addison and Darnell Mooney. Wow, we haven't talked about Darnell Mooney in a while.
No, we should.
Kadarius Toney, Farrell, too high, too low, or like Goldilocks would say, just right at the 906 right now.
No, he's gonna shoot up. People are gonna have memories of that Super Bowl, and he is going to shoot up. And then the new offensive coordinator is going to come in with Andy Reid and talk nothing about Toney, and we're going to go, oh my goodness. And then we're going to realize I just came over here from private chat, Balky, to comments, and I see the Dizzle says basically when he has good health, Toney's your guy. Mm-hmm. And that's he hasn't enjoyed that. He looks healthy now. He looks like he's ready to play football, and has matured a little bit away from the field. So Toney's probably a good investment beyond where he's being drafted now.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like I can get on board with him in like the middle of the 9th round if I need a receiver there as like my 4th receiver. Okay, that makes some sense. But at the same time, the longer you wait, and I think you just hit on it, the longer you wait, the more likely he is to be getting to a spot in the draft where you're not comfortable drafting him, because the hype will go up on him. We're going to hear this is his first full season in Kansas City. This is his first full season with Patrick Mahomes, first full season in the offense. He's healthy right now. He's a former first-round pick. He's come and now he goes from Daniel Jones to Patrick Mahomes. Like there's a lot to like here, and we don't know what the Chiefs are going to be doing at receiver. Now, if they stand pat and maybe they bring Smith-Schuster back, and they're still going to have Valdez-Scantling, and then you have Tony there as well, Kelsey. Then it would make some sense that Tony could be the guy this year. But that is hype. That is the Tony Kool-Aid is too bitter for me. And I think it's going to get more and more bitter as we get closer to the start of the season. So I will be staying away from him. I want to see if we can get. I mean, right now I'm fine with him, but I think you're right. I think that as we get closer to the start of the season, it's not.
Well, since we're talking best ball and since we're talking dynasty, I like him better in both those formats than I do when we'll be drafting in the main event at the beautiful Planet Hollywood, located on Las Vegas and Golden Strip.
Final email tonight is from Jim in Cypress Lake, Florida. He says, are you, hold on. Are you, I don't know why I can't read this. Are you concerned with Derek Carr's landing spot before you draft him right now? Thank you for the email. We really appreciate that, Jim in Cypress Lake, Florida. So the latest we got on Derek Carr is that he's visiting the Jets this weekend, but we know that he's been in touch with the Saints. The Panthers and Titans have some interest as well. Farrell, right now in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, Derek Carr has an ADP of 1203 as quarterback 20. I don't necessarily think that goes down anymore. I mean, he's going to be a starting quarterback somewhere this year. And I don't think, regardless of those at landing spots, I don't really think that the ADP spikes too far up. Are you rooting, if you have Carr in maybe dynasty leagues or anything like that, are you rooting for one location over another because you believe that he'll put up the best stats there?
New York Jets intrigues me just because of the wide receiver talent. Football, as a football player, it intrigues me because of the Tennessee Titans. He will not sign with Carolina Panthers. And who was the other contender?
Saints, Jets, Cardinals. You mentioned the Panthers and the oh no, it was the Saints and Jets. I think was the other two.
Well, Saints for some of the same reasons that you like the Jets, and that is who he visited first.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of that is positive. The Jets with the young running back, the receiver talent that they have, and the fact of their expectations as a team. I like what he could do for us with fantasy numbers.
Yeah, and Dizzle pointing out too those stunning eyes that we have seen from Derek Carr over the years. Bear in mind, Maybelline is has their corporate headquarters in New York too, so that would make some sense for Derek Carr to be that much closer to his eyeliner supply if he does sign with the Jets. I think that makes perfect sense. And listen, this is why you watch the HSFF Hour for hard.
We have stuff nobody else knows. Nobody else knows stuff.
Do want to tell you how much I appreciate you hanging out with me again this Friday. KFFSC.com is where to sign up for that final round of 96 of drafts that you guys have been putting on over the last week.
Please.
KFFSC.com is where to go for that. And that draft is Sunday evening, I want to say.
Sunday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, 9 spots still remaining. And Hudson Kern-Reeve is in there. And, Balky, we go into every show with I Can't Stand the Pressure, Quiet Hollers, Chadwick Wild original tune. Since we started and had our guest with such a great career that he has, and we're talking about Chicago Fire, Chadwick and the Quiet Hollers music is frequently featured on that television show.
Interesting.
But I think he's just as proud as being frequently featured here. Not as well paid, but just as proud.
Yeah, one of them is a hit show that millions of people watch every week.
What do you have to say about the other one?
It's on NBC. The other one's on NBC.
There you go. So that's what we got.
We follow you on Twitter, Farrell, at KFFSC official, KFFSC.com. Get there and sign up for those leagues right now. Farrell, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you.
Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, joining me on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour this evening, as he does each and every week. I want to thank Farrell. I want to thank our guest tonight, Rick Parkin, who was the champion of the FFPC Never Too Early Superflex, not the Never Too Early, the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 2 last year. We will be back live next Friday at 10/9 Central. Remember that the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network will go live Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern on the BSN app, which you can get free in the App Store and Google Play. I will be chopping it up for 2 full hours with Roto World and NBC Sports Edge's Pat Kerrane. Surprising he's still working after all the money he brought home in fantasy this year, but he's going to be working with me on Thursday night. Look forward to that as well. You should be looking forward to winning $25,000 in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Just $125 to get into that over at myffpc.com, or you can go to myffpc.com, plunk down $35 and win $5,000 in the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament as well. Again, both those tournaments will run all the way up to the start of the NFL Draft. 14-week regular season. A winner is crowned after 3 weeks of single elimination playoffs after round 17. And if you want to get into a 30-second clock draft, a 60-second clock draft, a 2-hour clock draft, a 6-hour clock draft, whatever you want, those are all available at myffpc.com. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of the great deals we have on Dynasty Orphans as well. Myffpc.com is where to go for that. Click on Dynasty and you'll get a link to the Dynasty Orphans we have available there right now. A lot of good teams out there for not very much money. Teams that definitely can be turned into championship contenders the first year that you have them. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this feed, the FFPC YouTube feed, as well as comment on the video, share the video with your friends, get notified so you never miss the next time we go live, which will be 10/9 Central this coming Friday. Thank you so much for everybody for watching tonight. I really appreciate it. And I know there's no football going forward, but there still is fantasy football. Make sure that you're checking that out at myffpc.com. Be good, everybody, and we'll talk with you again next week.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
It's going to be wild not having any meaningful football now until early September. That's the next time we get real live football. But bear in mind that it comes with a treat, because we'll be live at Planet Hollywood next week as well. Next week, I wish we were live at Planet Hollywood next week. But the next time we have real live NFL football, I will be seeing you in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood to watch that game in person. Who will it be? I don't know, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So it's going to be a long off season, but it's going to be a fun drafting season, and we will have you covered right here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.